Okay, welcome. It's Henry Weston's Old Mate, the podcast. I'm Phil Walton. We've got a special edition this evening. We've got a guest with us. I'll introduce Adam in a moment, but very firstly, let's just say a quick hello to Stu. How are you doing, Stu?
I'm well, mate. Good evening, Phil. Good evening, Adam. I'm going to sit back and enjoy the ride tonight, I think.
Okay, well, let's do the usual check-ins then. Still sober? No temptations?
Very sober, no temptations. Bit of that horrible stuff flying around locally.
Yeah.
Trying to avoid that. But no, everything's good. Had a little run after work. All is well. Still cooking. Still reading my podcast book. Looking forward to this evening.
Good. We'll just quantify then that horrible stuff is actually COVID related, not some sort of venereal disease or anything like that.
No venereal disease and certainly not alcohol.
Okay, very good. Okay, so we'll always do this from now on just to try and increase the exposure of the podcast. But when you've listened or watched on either YouTube or through your podcast provider, just a like, rate, review is always very welcome. 5-star review if you think it's worth it. But it'll be greatly appreciated just to increase the exposure, because really what we're trying to do is help people. We're not trying to monetize or anything like that. So let's get cracking with Adam Colman is joining us this evening. Adam is based up in the northwest of England. Adam is a recovering addict, but has got a really interesting story around his recovery, which intertwines obviously in the same way that it has done with Stuart with mental health. And we kind of found you on the internet, and your story is really interesting. So we thought we'd invite you on and just let's hear about it. Much of this podcast is very much around now the human story of recovery and addiction, and I think yours is a very interesting one. So good evening, Adam. How are you doing?
I'm very well, thanks, guys. It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for the invite.
Very welcome. You're very welcome. So I think I was first aware of you after Stuart had shared a link around a group that you are part of, which you're sporting all the merchandise. We're very jealous of the merchandise, I've got to say, called It Starts Monday. First of all, let's hear a little bit about that, and then we'll kind of reverse through your story a little bit to see how it is that you got there.
Yeah, basically, it's a group set up by a good friend now of mine, Curtis Woodhouse. I saw it on Facebook last year. In actual fact, it's my group's first year birthday tomorrow. So I've been involved with that since the 25th of January last year. Basically, I was in a bad spot at that time, coming out at the end of a bit of a blowout, and I was in a bad spot mentally as well. So I watched the groups for a couple of weeks, and then I decided, enough's enough. I've got to really take control and try and do something for myself. I had people for years telling me about exercise and that it helps mental health and everything, but I just wasn't in a place ready to listen and hear that. I could hear it, but it just wasn't, registering. So I took the plunge, and I think I did my first clip and started to be honest about my struggles and my journey, and never looked back since. It's a phenomenal group, it really is.
Fab. Okay.
So it's on, it's mind, body, and soul. It's mental health. It's fitness. Camaraderie. It's a great thing, really is.
Excellent, and I think that's something that we've kind of touched on through our episodes when we've invited actually guests coming on. The social media support, unlike many other areas of social media, I think my impression is that the recovery community is so supportive. Everyone knows just how shit your own position has been, that you can see the suffering, and you don't want other people suffering their version of what that looks like. So the support is just superb and unconditional, it seems.
Yeah, exactly that. I started to share when I got the guts to do it. I started sharing my journey, and it's just took off from there. I mean, the messages of support I get, and I can help others through sharing my journey, and that's a really powerful tool I've found. But yeah, you're right there. The people that reach out, that is one good thing about social media. It's very rarely that you get somebody encouraging, bad behavior, or it's always supportive. So yeah.
Fantastic, fantastic. So let's then hear a little bit about, you share and talk about as much as, or as little as you like, hopefully not too little, because we've got 45 minutes to fill. But tell us a little bit about your background. You've talked about a low ebb, you've talked about in a rough spot. Give us a bit of detail and kind of, what that means, what that was like for you.
Yeah, so basically my struggle with mental health and addiction began around 2010. I had no idea what was going on, at the time. My personal circumstances, kind of got the better of me, and I lost control of the situation. I think looking back, that's when the anxiety set in and the depression, and I really didn't understand fully what it was. I like to drink anyway, socially, and people have said to me in the past that, I sometimes take things too far and whatnot. But I struggled around that time, and looking back now, it was my mental health that kicked things off. So I began to drink 1 or 2 cans, and then that turned to 4, 5, 6, 8. And I remember being stood in the house I used to live at, stood in the shed. We'd had a drinks party the night before. I was stood in the shed, and I just felt really low. And I found myself mopping up all the drinks from the night before. And it was at that point, sort of to the end of 2010, that I knew it was a problem. So I think I've spoke to many people since, and as an addict, you're probably the last to know it's a problem. So it maybe was a problem before that, but that was a defining moment for me, that I knew things were bad. And shortly after that, I was admitted into a mental health assessment unit, just diagnosed with depression, anxiety. Your go-to thing for your local GP sort of thing. On the medication.
Do you mind if I ask, Adam, what triggered kind of like the admission to the mental health unit? What was manifesting or on display for people to see that made you go either to your GP or there was I'll use the word crisis team, but there was an intervention involved to support you?
It was exactly that. The crisis team were called, yeah. And my behaviour became sort of out of control. I became angry. The slightest little things were setting me off into a bad temper, rage almost. Not directed at anyone. It was throwing things, smashing things up, and I didn't see it. I was unaware. But it always happened when a drink was involved. So back then, 11 years ago now, mental health teams really couldn't do anything, or wouldn't, or if a substance was involved. So I was told to get sober. Basically, I was told I needed to be 7 months sober before mental health would revisit me. So I was basically put into an assessment unit for a month at that point. And basically all they do is kind of make you comfortable, calm you down, and then ship you out, basically. And that began at like a 5-6 year journey of in and out of places like that, repeating the process.
Yeah, it seems like they kind of break the habit, but actually there's nothing on the outside that's being fixed. So if you're released back into the wild, you're going back to the same temptations, the same stimulus, the same issues that you've got to face.
Absolutely, 1,000,000%, yeah. And it's so easy to fall. You see, the thing is, what a lot of people don't understand is it's okay being admitted into one of these places, but the aftercare just isn't there. And to this day, it still isn't there. And I truly believe, this is why I'm passionate about helping others, because I truly believe I've had more help online and through It Starts Monday, and the Mind, Body and Soul Twitter account has helped me massively. I've had more help on a daily basis through things like this than I have the NHS, and it's pretty sad, really.
I don't want to. Sorry to butt in, and I don't want to bash the NHS. They were fantastic for me, but I'm actually. When I left hospital in 2017, December 2017, I was meant to. I'd filled out forms for two for 2 follow-up services within the NHS, and to this day I'm still waiting to receive something through the post from either of them. And I was discharged, and obviously I know Phil works for the NHS over in Wales, so I don't want to bag anyone off, but it was, you know, I was very fortunate that I came out into a very stable, loving sort of family setting, but had I been released back to a shared flat or, you know, sheltered accommodation, I can't imagine I would have stayed sober after my release.
Yeah, I'm not calling the NHS one bit. The situation I'm in at the minute, there's different levels of help what people need, and sadly I've not reached or got to the right person yet. I was promised things last week, and I've still not had the call back yet. It's what I was getting at there was, I understand why we're losing so many men. I believe the situation they find themselves in, like you just said there, shared accommodation, back into addiction and all the rest of it, while they're waiting for this impending help. I think that's the problem. I'm not calling the NHS; they've done a lot for me. But yeah, I think there is a gap there, definitely.
Yeah, I think it's well recognised, particularly in mental health services, that they are just chronically underfunded, and the people that work in those services do the very best that they can with very little resource at all. And I think, like you say, they have to prioritise. And I think if you're at risk for either of your taking your own life or harming others, you hit the top of the priority list, but everything else below that kind of falls under a triage system, doesn't it? And that's how the NHS is currently being run. We will step very quickly away from political kind of commentary around how the NHS is going. You talked about, before I interrupted you, about kind of 5-6 year in-out routine with mental health services, and just pick the story up from where you were there.
Yeah, so it's basically a cycle. I would be lucky enough to be accepted into an assessment unit again, but very little assessing seemed to be done. This kind of accelerated really, and my behaviour just became, intolerable. Started to, my drinking was always behind closed curtains in a flat by myself. It very rarely entered a pub with anybody else, but it did go onto the streets, and I ended up getting picked by the police for like public order, offences, and just being a nuisance and somebody that was in essence just out of control. But the minute it left my doorstep and went onto the streets, that's when serious things started to happen. Getting picked up by the police, and then ultimately ending in prison. I was in prison for criminal damage. I damaged the back of an ambulance. I was on my way to another mental assessment unit and completely lost the plot. I cannot remember much of it, but it was, that's probably one of the worst things I've done, because that ambulance could have saved somebody that day, and I took it off the road. So I was taken to prison on a recovery wing, and I did 6 months in there. Came out, was determined, but ultimately fell back into the old thoughts and feelings, and things weren't being addressed really. The aftercare wasn't there, and looking back, I just lent on the thing that had always been there, a bottle, a can. So I repeated that process 2 or 3 more times in prison for similar offences. I've never ever been arrested by the police sober. And I'm proud of myself that I've not taken that road back again. I've been free of any trouble whatsoever for a year now, a year and a half. So I'm pretty pleased with that.
No, you should be proud. It's kind of, it must be an enormously difficult cycle to break once you're in that kind of, just either drinking or kind of the loss of control, but being able to, and that was, I guess, one of the key features here is that, did you have to do anything really drastic to break that cycle? At some point there must have been, like, you've done this, you've gone in and out of prison, in and out of a kind of mental health support. Something fundamentally had to change, either mentally or in your surroundings or the people that you associate with? Anything change there?
Well, this is the thing. I've spoken to a lot of people, and a lot of people, drinkers and addicts, can blame other people. But mine was always solitary, solo, by myself. So that really, thinking back, that really just showed me how bad things were for me. I was on self-destruct, self-sabotage. Every time something went well, I destroyed it. I was angry at myself for decisions I've made, which in hindsight now really didn't affect anyone that much. But I was just stuck in that cycle of self-sabotage, self-loathing. I had no self-respect, self-esteem, confidence had gone. And that also led me to attempt on my own knife at the worst point, yeah. Got pretty bad. But ultimately what I did was I watched the groups and reached out to Curtis, and that for me was a defining moment in taking back control of this horrible situation.
Can I just butt in and just rewind you about 30 seconds, Adam? Because I'm always interested with, you know, other addicts, people who've struggled with the alcohol like myself. And when I was drinking, I was addicted to alcohol, but I wasn't drinking because I was angry as such. I don't really know. I was drinking because I wanted to numb myself, to go to sleep, basically. Just wanted to be away from the mental space I found myself in sober. But with you, sort of listening to you there, were you cracking that first can of the day in an angry state, and the cracking of the can was, I'm going to show the world and this is how I'm going to do it with drinking, or were you medicating to what was it were you angry from the minute you woke up during the day when you were back struggling then?
Well, no, listen, as you're well aware, there's different stages to becoming an addict. At first, yeah, when I was in the shed in 2010, I know exactly what I was doing. I was self-medicating because I was anxious. I felt out of control. I had racing thoughts. And initially, 4 cans sorted that. And it sorted it for a while. And then as it progressed, 4 became 8. And then habit had taken control. Addiction was in full swing. So it went beyond self-medicating. It became, a serious addiction problem. And that's when you start cracking the first can in the morning. That's when you're shouting to yourself, oh, shit, I've woken up again. I've got to do this again because it's taken hold. So the self-medicating went out the window and it became just full-blown addiction. Cracking a can first thing in the morning, not having any particular thought, to be fair. The anger and the resentment and all the feelings kind of came back after that initial euphoric feeling of a couple of drinks.
Right.
Subside.
Yeah. That's exactly where you're going with that. Yeah.
Do you mind if I ask about, so you've mentioned anxiety a few times. Do you have is there a particular trigger or something that you have pinpointed either through your support groups or any mental health services that you have been able to access? The thing that's really why that grips so much, is there something about your life, about your day, the thing that kind of really triggers that anxiety?
Yeah. You see, growing up in the 80s, as a man, you were, your 2 main roles around your family were to protect and provide. And they were basically taken away from me in 2010. So I began to feel anxious that things were going to happen, and then as my mental health kind of took a downturn, them things came to the surface. It wasn't until a good sort of 5-6 years that I realised what anxiety was, and it's beyond a butterfly feeling in your chest. It's not for a positive reason. And I was unaware for a lot of years about what was going on inside me. Then, of course, chuck a drink into that, and everything kind of snowballs from there. But basically, I think it was a control aspect of, my life, what I could control in my own bubble was kind of gone, and it just became massive from there.
Okay, no, I get that. And I think the other thing that struck me while you were speaking just now is the anxiety leads to a couple of drinks just to help through the day. But then as that got out of control, kind of mental health support is required. But then you said right at the very beginning that, you know, to have some kind of ongoing longitudinal mental health support, you needed to be sober. So actually, it's so frustrating that you can kind of see we need to support the anxiety, and then the alcohol will probably you'll be in a better place to stop with the alcohol, rather than stop with the alcohol, watch the mental health and the anxiety get rage out of control. You're onto a loser before you start.
Yeah, well, my last time in a mental health assessment unit was only last September.
Yeah.
And that's when the breakthrough happened. And this is, you know, I'm fast forwarding slightly, but getting to the point of I was wrongly diagnosed for all them years. I was on the wrong medication. And it's only last September I found this out. So I was diagnosed last September with a thing called cyclothymia. And I was also told that the medication I was on was only fit for a child. So looking back, I'm not hiding behind this, but I was onto a loser, like you say, anyway. I'm not hiding behind any of that, you know, I made mistakes and whatnot. But when I was told that news this year, I was like, you know, when you just cannot believe what you're hearing.
Yep.
But it did it's given me a better understanding of the cycle of why I maybe went into so many assessment units, why I went to prison so many times, because it is a cycle of behaviour. So as I understand, and I'm still waiting now, when I was released in September, I was told as a follow-up I would be explained what it is, how to manage it, and get aftercare and support. This is what I'm still waiting for. I've just had a medication review. So yeah, hopefully things are in the balance now. But as I understand it, it's not bipolar, but it's like bipolar, you can be up for days, down for days. Cyclothymia, you're up and down multiple times in one day. So that would explain a lot of my behaviour previous to this. So now what I've been doing is I've just been trying to because I've not had anything explained, I'm just trying to ride these feelings, let them happen naturally and not force anything. And for the last month, that's been working for me. So I'm basically winging it as we speak. And that coupled with the It Starts Monday and the exercise, I'm finding a happy balance with things at the minute.
No, that's great. We're going to come on to It Starts Monday in just a second, but I think the being in that position, and for me, I have my own mental health history and things around anxiety. And one of the bigger things that I struggle with is that lack of control, which is kind of what you've just described as well. Like you've got a diagnosis, but you know nothing about it. That's really, really unhelpful. But if you're in a position where you are have a stable base kind of from a mental health point of view, as you currently are, and able to rationalize and accept the things that you're not in control of at the moment, then you're probably in a better place to wait until you get that additional kind of diagnosis, information, support, management, ongoing management of that mental health condition.
Yeah, correct. Yeah. I mean, historically, my cycle has been almost monthly. I can be fantastic exercise wise, everything's on point, diet, everything. And then the last week of a month, usually, it drops off, and I kind of like drop off the face of the earth and become withdrawn. Social anxiety became a problem as well. That hit me out of the blue. That was a real crippler. I found that really tough. But this is week 4. This is my first week 4 since September that I'm feeling in a good spot mentally, physically. I'm optimistic and positive, and I'm determined to get to where I want to be in the future. So a pretty, I'm at a breakthrough moment in things at the minute, to be fair. Things are good.
Yeah, and as an observation, then, if this is week 4 and you say that you drop off the face of the earth and you have some social anxiety and you've come onto a podcast to tell your story and meet 2 absolute strangers, that's actually a flag in the ground, isn't it? In terms of, a good marker that you're progressing.
Yeah, it is. I had a bit of anxiety in the 5 minutes run up to this, but I mean, it's to be expected, and they do say that nerves keep you alive. So, yeah, I feel good, and giving back to people and seeing that I am able to help other people. It's not the police at my door anymore. It's somebody opening up to me and asking for my help. So it's difficult to take compliments. I'm not there with it yet, but I know I can help people, and that's all I want to do.
And I think that's something that you found as well, Stu, isn't it? That this is actually, I certainly wouldn't describe you, Stu, as being evangelical about your recovery or anything like that, but actually coming out, having the courage to share your story and be open and brutally honest about it, has actually encouraged people to come to you and just kind of say, almost just a thanks for what you're doing. And a couple of people even reached out for a bit of help as well.
Yes, and when this podcast finishes, I will be straight on to another phone call in that sort of regard, which I would not have imagined 6 months ago. And yeah, like you say, Phil, and as Adam hinted at just then, taking compliments in, well, I don't know, I'll always be in recovery, I guess, and whether 4 years in, whether I'm in early recovery or whatever stage I'm in, I still find it hard. And I still every now and again find myself mentally saying, sorry. I don't verbalise it to my wife or my parents or close friends anymore, but I still think it when I've done a good thing. In my head, I'm still, every now and again, I'm still trying to calculate, how much is that sort of knocked off the tab that I still owe the world, which, as we discussed 3 or 4 podcasts ago, Phil, I can't do that anymore, because I just have to almost live one day at a time, not in the sense of not drinking, but I have to take each day as it comes. And there is no point if I do a good thing, then that is fantastic. I try to. If I have a bad day, that doesn't mean I'm that person I was 4 and a bit years ago in the depths of my alcoholism and anxious brain. So yeah, it's so hard to, as an addict, a recovering addict, it's so hard to accept compliments, really. And I have, to be honest, since I've been doing this, there's quite a lot of comments on the Twitter feeds. There's some nice comments every time me and Phil put a YouTube video up. Thank you, Brian. He loves a very positive comment. But it is so hard. But we are able to do positive things, and I think Phil's probably going to take this podcast in that direction in a minute when we move on to discuss what Adam's doing in a really positive sense now, daily almost.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I think it's, one of the spotlight that we became aware of you and your journey is kind of the ITV news coverage of Curtis's kind of venture into It Starts Monday and the help and support he's been providing. But so talk to us a little bit about kind of what it involves. We've kind of got an idea of it's kind of like an online or virtual support group, which is great. But what does that look like on a day-to-day basis, and how has that really helped you over the last couple of months?
Well, I got in touch with Curtis on Facebook, and how it works is there's a subscription, a monthly subscription. It's pennies. It's not a lot. You get put into a WhatsApp group with all the guys or females. There's ladies groups as well. So basically, if you join on this particular Monday, for example, I joined on 25th, you'll get a group of 30, 40, 50 other guys. And I joined for my mental health, some joined for weight loss, some joined for camaraderie, There's a lot of people that have played sport to a high level, and, as we grow up, life gets in the way and we let ourselves go. So there's a really big mix of different types and reasons why. So every day you'll wake up to a message. Somebody's always up before you. They've done a workout, and that puts that bit of fire in your chest of, yes, that's brilliant. I'm going to get up and I'm going to do something today. Because through my journey of addiction and the rest of it, all energy was sapped out of me. I was good for nothing. So when I joined, it was like, wow, there's positive people around. I shared my first clip, introduced myself. Some other guys did the same, and we've never looked back. So the average day, I wake up in the morning, there's messages on, we check in, we're saying, morning. On a Monday, we'll say our goals for the week. We'll, some of us will put our weight on, depending what we want target-wise from that week. And we just support each other. There's guys that have, all walks of life, all different problems, but we all support one another in like a brotherly kind of way. It's become an extended family, if you like.
And it's
so more recently, sorry, go on.
No, I was just going to say, I'm not going to use the word, it wouldn't go down very well, but the group of men you just described doing amazing positive work 3 to 4 years ago in the UK, I know exactly a famous line from the In-Betweeners would have been used towards something like that going on. I mean, and today it's fantastic that it is what is happening, and it needs to happen. It needs to happen amongst the male population, that men supporting men is good, and it's not to be laughed at, mocked at, ridiculed. Not suggesting that it is now, but just listening to you, my reaction to almost listening to what you said, I can imagine what a 25-year-old Stuart would have reeled off the minute you came to me and said, oh, me and a load of other boys are in a WhatsApp group and we get up each morning and tell each other the good things. My reaction would have been to slate it, and it shouldn't have been. And that was, that was where we were a few years ago. But now listening to this, that you can do that, it's absolutely fantastic to hear.
Yeah, I mean, if you'd have asked me 10 years ago would I've been doing what I'm doing now, I'd have said no chance. I didn't have a voice. I didn't have a clue. So finding that you can have a voice and it's received, and there are other people, you're not alone. There's millions of messages in different groups out there. It's phenomenal what we're achieving, the stories you see every day. And I mean, it's not just a WhatsApp group. There's you can meet all the other members on Twitter. I'm finding Twitter really helpful to meet the extended family. We've got a first birthday bash coming up. There's Zoom fitness workouts, nutrition plans. It's got the lot really. Because as I say, there's people from many different walks of life with different issues and different goals and targets. But one common denominator is really that I've seen is that men are feeling braver about coming out with issues they have. Some are big, some are small. But I mean, to that guy, what we think's a small issue is massive to it. So no discrimination, no judgment. We all help each other, and like you say, 10 years ago, it's been unheard of.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the point where you need help, when you're in a position where you ask for help and need help, until you've walked in somebody else's shoes, you haven't got the foggiest what's important to them and what that small thing might mean to them. And likewise, if it's a big thing, a rock bottom, a kind of a incarceration or an admission to a mental health unit, or admission to, like Stu, a hospital with kind of all sorts of medical emergencies going on, your own issues are either big or small to you. And really, even if that 25-year-old Stu Butler wants to say anything, the answer to that is kind of fuck you don't know. But you've answered one of my questions a little bit there, Adam, in terms of the group is still kind of in its infancy a little bit, in terms of it was kind of throughout lockdown it got set up. Is that right, or a bit before that?
Yeah, mine's second group, so it was a week before the 25th of last year. So yeah, it will have been, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So I guess the question was around opportunities, or is it to meet people in public? Is that something that's encouraged? You said you've got a first birthday bash. Is that an actual meet and greet in person sort of thing?
Yeah,
or
last year they did a walk up in Scotland for Sam H, Scottish mental health charity. Did a big walk for charity up there. There's loads on the cards this year. We've got a couple of celebrities as ambassadors. We've got mental health ambassadors on board. The strongest things I find are the real stories from the real guys, you know. And I mean, just in my group alone, knowing the guys and the fact that I've still got a group of 50 guys that have been there for a year, I think is phenomenal. You know, you wake up some mornings and somebody will put something down, and because you've developed that relationship, you know the right things to say to that guy. You know how far you can push him and encourage him. But yeah, I've met a fair few of the guys. I've been for workouts. I've met for been cycling and stuff like that. So the guys are based all around the country. Logistically, it's difficult sometimes, but there is some guys local to me. So yeah, we meet up regular. And I meet up with Curtis and Josh, the founders of the group. They've been phenomenal help to me when I've been really low, taking time out of their busy lives to come and support me. So we've developed really good friendships over the last year. It's a beautiful thing.
Oh, very good. And in terms of, I guess anybody that might be listening to this, kind of, we've often talked about it in respect of coming out. So if you've got somebody any advice really that you would give to anybody who was either needing to access support or got this feeling that they want to share their story in some way because it might help, or it might feel like it lifts a weight off their shoulders, what would you say?
What would I say if they wanted to do that?
Yeah, but we're concerned, worried, whatever about doing it.
I think you've got to be ready. You know, the one thing I have learned, especially with my addiction, is you know, I've had people telling me for years, but you've got to be ready. You know, if you feel it's time to speak out and ask for help, you know, or tell your story, you've got to find, you know, the right people for you. Like speaking to you guys the other day, you know, non-confrontational, easy to talk to, you know. But definitely something like the It Starts Monday group. I mean, I would have never dreamed to. I said things on that first clip I've not told family. I think it gave me a platform of non-judgmental. You know, when you speak to families, they're connected to your feelings involved, and you know they only want the best for you. They'll probably let things slide. But for me, it was opening up, and I just felt a sense of freedom. So my advice to anybody thinking about doing anything like this is, you know, take the plunge if you can, if you feel ready, record the video, watch it back, and just get it out there, because the support and the feedback I've had online, especially Twitter from, you know, the extended groups and people that don't even know me, saying how inspiring my journey is and stuff. I had a message from a guy that's actually joined It Starts Monday last week, asking me, you know, would he be accepted? Everybody's accepted. It's just if we can manage the numbers at that time. So my advice to anyone would be, yeah, if you can find the strength to speak out, there is always someone that'll listen.
Sorry to interrupt again, guys, but that is so brilliantly put, Adam. And I would just like to sort of flag or add a couple of points to that.
Yeah.
Picked up from my own story a little bit. I mean, my addiction, I've written about it and spoke to Phil about it. I missed my opportunity to ask for help myself, and most addicts will on the route to rock bottom. I had a chance. I remember a few times cycling to work, throwing vodka bottles into wheat fields at 4 o'clock in the morning, knowing it was the wrong thing to do. And I was clear in my mind that I was an alcoholic, but I wasn't brave enough to speak to my mum or my wife. But the other point that I think, again, might be related within the male environment slightly is, as if you are an employer or if you spend a lot of time working with colleagues, you know, I spend more time with my work colleagues than I do with my family, really, let's be honest.
Yeah.
And I think we need to try, if we can, to be better at asking again. If I ask you if you're not okay, but I think there's something wrong, if you fob me off, I need to go back to that 48 hours later, potentially. And maybe even risk having a little heated argument when you tell me, look, Stu, piss off, I'm fine. Going a bit beyond that to the point where, well, there's something that's not quite right. And I know from experience, and it's not saying my story would have been any different because I had to get to where I had to, I think. But I think there's those intervention points, and it could be within the workplace if we could get a little bit better at potentially identifying it. But then someone, or I could swing that around on myself and say, as addicts, we are the masters of hiding things. So it's not as simple as I'm making it out. But you put that so brilliantly, Adam. I just wanted to sort of butt in and add that on the end there. Sorry, Phil.
Yeah, I mean, on the back of that, I had a really good job last year. Job I loved, my dream job, really. I had some really, on my journey, I've had some really strange, brilliant conversations about mental health in the most unexpected places with the most unexpected people. And one of them was my boss. Now, a lot of relatable information was shared between us, but ultimately, I was a new member there, and unfortunately, they'd had somebody else off with poor mental health. And obviously, when you get business involved, it becomes a different thing. You know, he had to safeguard his business. He couldn't afford to have me off. But ultimately, I let things get on top of me. Drink wasn't involved at that time. I just went into work one day and I just convinced myself I couldn't do it anymore. And I just had a bit of a breakdown. But yeah, on the back of that, I think more can be done in workplaces, you know. But I think it's a difficult one, isn't it? You know, when you get too many variables involved, like, you know, the business and money and all the rest of it.
Yeah,
it becomes
and it's sadly, I mean, I work in an all-male environment. There are female greenkeepers. There are many of them now, but there aren't at my particular place of work. But in probably 3 or 4 months ago, I remember sitting in on a conversation and keeping my mouth very tightly closed when it was mentioned that, well, you know, what if they, you know, play the mental health card when they want some time off? And it's just still the thinking. But in a business sense, it's certainly in small businesses, privately owned businesses. I don't know. We're getting a bit political again, aren't we? We could come back to that another time.
No, I don't think we are getting political. I think this is probably the root of many of the issues. Is that you know, that type of pervasive attitude towards mental health. Like, if you break an arm, everyone can see it, no problem.
Yeah,
you got a broken mind, you know, you could be swinging the lead and in somebody else's eyes, and that's the issue that we've discussed a few times. And I think but I think there is also a culture in the workplace. You know, I'm a nurse, and we still see it in the NHS, and the books and magazines out in the world that talk about, you know, be your best all the time and no days off, and you've got to strive to be the absolute best. It's actually a lot to live up to, you know. And actually, if you need, you know, if you've got a time when you're actually not being your best and all you can give is all you're giving, then that should be acceptable. And yes, it might not be the best that you've ever given, but I'm giving everything that I can do today. Thank you very much. But this cultural attitude of, you know, it's kind of like Team America World Police, isn't it? It's just like everyone's on it. Fuck yeah. But it's, I don't know, that needs to change. It's kind of like a macho world, even in all sorts of business, even in nursing circles, it's a macho world sometimes.
Yeah, it goes back to that. It's, you know, as I said in one of the early podcasts, didn't I, Phil? I don't like the saying it's okay to not be okay, because it is okay to not be okay as long as it doesn't mess around with things in the workplace.
As long as it's not inconvenient. Yeah.
Yeah, as long as it's not inconvenient. Exactly. How long have we got, Phil?
Well, we're now tiptoeing into running over, but you know.
I just wanted to ask Adam while he's here with us. How much do you want it? Is that your catchphrase? Have you coined that? Is it protected? I love it.
I'll be honest. Curtis sat me down when I was in a bad spot, and he likens everything to, you know, going that last round in boxing, biting down on your gum shield, and asking yourself, how much do you want it? Yeah, I stole it from him, but you know,
it's brilliant.
I just think it's one of them things. I was on a run one morning, and I just thought, oh, this is tough. This is too hard. I can't do this. You know, when you're aching and everything's screaming stop, and it just hit me in, you know, right up here, and I just found myself slapping my chest. And it's for me, I feel it's the only question you need to ask yourself. You know, when anything gets hard, not specifically exercise, but you know, you might be having a shit day. You know, you might be struggling. Sometimes you've got to dig yourself out, because sometimes there isn't anyone else there. And I think for me personally, I've had to do that so many times. And I feel in this strong position I'm in now, it works, you know, and other people are using it and it's working for them. So yeah, you can have copyright on that one.
So, but I think it's you know, these mechanisms are actually around there, you know, and well documented. It's like a personal check-in. You know, sometimes you haven't got somebody to hold your hand and kind of say, "Come on, now you can do this." But so kind of how much do you want it is along the same line as, so Dr. Steve Peters is the psychiatrist that worked with British Cycling. He's worked with Stephen Gerrard, Ronnie O'Sullivan, those sorts of people. And in one of his books, he talks about, you know, when that anxiety or that feeling that you don't want rears its head, there's a trigger to kind of just bring yourself back down to earth and go and ask yourself, do I like feeling like this? Do I want to feel like this? And it's not a magic wand, of course it's not, but it's a personal check-in to kind of go, I'm on a cycle here that I don't like, right? I can actually do something. And how much do you want it is pretty much on that same vein. It's that check-in to say, wake up, come on, get through this next minute, this next hour, this next day, whatever it is that you need to get through to you know, the success that you've dreamed about, and whatever that looks like.
Exactly that, yeah. I mean, I've never ever asked for anyone to fix me or, you know, save me. At this moment in time, I just need some information on how to manage what is part of me now. So I guess with so many closed doors and the journey, it's all the journey. You've got to get to a point where you find your formula, as Curtis would say. Find that formula, what works for you. And we might have to tweak that formula every now and again. But ultimately, I mean, you know, we're all told feelings are temporary, ride the urge, you know, the craving will go. You know, it's not negative self-talk that I give myself anymore. Mm-hmm. Accepting who I am, you know, accepting that cyclothymia is a part of me, and you know, learning how to manage and live with that. But definitely, you know, I have these little things. We all have these little things we talk about. I don't say 100% anymore. I say 1,000,000%, you know, because I'm dreaming big about stuff. I stole that one off Tyson Fury, by the way.
We're going to have all the boxers after us, Phil.
I know.
But yeah, I mean, we all have these things at work. God knows I've had so many that have been negative and have worked in a negative way. I feel, you know, like running for me is the most difficult thing. I think that's why I've chosen it, because I think my mind has got me into so many of these negative spaces. I believe that with enough work, hard work and graft, my mind can get me out of it. And that's where I am with stuff. You know, I will never give up. I didn't manage to commit suicide. And as my mum always says, there's a reason why you're still here. So I'm operating on that positive at the minute.
Good man.
I think that's a powerful place for us to wrap up for this evening. Adam, I do want to say that firstly, we're really grateful for you kind of sparing the time to come and talk to us. I hope the anxiety wasn't too bad, and it's been a relatively enjoyable experience for you. But not just grateful for you giving up your time, but your honesty in sharing your journey. Maybe your mum is right that, you know, one of the things that you are still here for is helping other people by sharing what you're doing. And whether you like the compliments or not, but, you know, inspiring is a word that fits very well with what you're doing. I know you're still quite early in your recovery and all the rest of it, and you're still working hard at that. But just spending an hour with you has been, you know, kind of motivating from my point of view as well to listen to you. So, you know, really grateful for you for that. And I guess we both should just say, you know, good luck with and continued good health, both mentally and physically, because you're doing some good things. And I think keeping talking about your journey, that success is out there for everybody if you want it hard enough. Want it hard? That's not the phrase, was it? How much do you want it? I butchered that. But you know what I mean. I think it's a important message to share. So thank you so much.
It's been an honour and a privilege. I'm really grateful to be asked. Yeah, it's been a pleasure. Yeah, the anxiety is straight out the window. We're all good.
That's good to hear. Stu, any final thoughts for you?
No, not on this one. We'll leave it with you. Summed it up brilliantly, Phil. Adam was a wonderful guest. No one needs to hear from me anymore tonight.
Okay, well, in that case, then, just a very quickly, you know, this is one of my favourite episodes so far. So, and I hope listeners and watchers enjoyed it equally. So, like, rate, review on that. If anybody's got any comments or questions you want to send through, hwomthepod@gmail.com. Very grateful to hear from you, and anybody that might even want to come and share their story, you're very welcome. We'll close off the episode tonight, and just one final thank you to Adam for everything you've done in joining us tonight, and good luck and keep well.
Absolute pleasure, boys. Thanks very much.
Thanks, gents.